I'm Chris Arredondo, host here at Get Freight to It. This is our 35th episode. Sort of took a small break there the last month or so, but today we've got a really good episode. I've got Sean with Tai Software and Greg over at Concept Logistics. We're going to be talking about a couple interesting things going on today. I think a lot of the market has felt margin compression and just trying to figure out how do we navigate where we're at right now, and is it ever going to change? The other side is what to do when that happens, and then kind of looking at procurement as a profit lever. The other side, we're also going to be breaking down one of our recent case studies there with Concept Logistics that Greg is going to be talking about a little bit. So with that, I'm going to pull in my guests here. I've got Sean and I've got Greg. Guys, welcome.
Hey, Chris. Good to see you, Chris.
Right on. Sean, you're to my right, so you won't see my hand. Like, I'll come all the way over, but tell us who you are, what you do, the whole kit and caboodle.
Yeah, I'm Sean McGillicuddy. I'm Chief Revenue Officer at Tai Software. We're a TMS provider exclusively for freight brokers that are doing full truckload and LTL, and more recently, drayage. There'll be some more news about that. But that's what we do.
That sounds awesome. We've had a lot of requests for dray. Sort of supported it, didn't support it along the year. So we'll, I don't know, kind of see where the market takes us. But Greg, what about you?
Greg Finnerty, Concept Logistics. Been in this industry for 25 years, pretty much seen everything it's gonna do to us, maybe some new things along the way, but just happy to be here and thank you very much.
Yeah. So we're gonna kick off the news, not news. Everybody's pretty much seen it right now. The DAT convoy situation. I've heard a lot of opinions. I think what I've been reading out there from like the people sitting on the fence, like just trying to look at, like, is this a disruption? Is it something new? Is it like, what is it going to do? Are people still waiting for a competitor to come into this market, or how does it change the landscape of the marketplace? And I have my opinions on the whole situation. I'll try to reserve those as much as I can, but I think there's those people on the fence that are just kind of watching everything happen. The other side is there's the brokerage market who's like, we had Convoy prior was a broker, right? And it's like, how do you trust your data going to this tech platform when they're still a broker? And over the last couple of years, I believe they split that out into whenever it was purchased by Flexport, where it was just tech, but there's still like that element of, I don't know. And then there's like the carrier side that's like, I've seen a ton of comments like, this is great for us because there's more loads. Essentially, we don't have to go somewhere else to find all this freight. So I don't know, Greg, what's your take on this whole thing?
I think DAT's making a good move here. It's a smart move. It's the anti-load board to the load board, right? So you're trying to, do a lot of what I would say, Chris, you and I work on a regular basis. They're trying to set up some things where you're going to look at some private capacity and things like that they're trying to do. The upside, if it's accomplished, fantastic. The downside is that's a major undertaking for these two companies to kind of match that up. Like you said, the carriers might like it more, the brokers might not like it more. It's another thing that we're gonna put in front of our teams. It's another way of doing business. And in the 25 years I guess I've been doing this, like, change isn't typically easy.
Right.
I think you've really gotta see what your team needs before you start going in and implementing just, hey, here it is. This is what we're going to do now, right? If they don't have a need for it, if it's not what they're doing, then I don't know. I don't think it won't take, to each brokerage. But I think you're also, if you're 100% dependent on the load boards, I don't think it's a great move for a brokerage.
Yeah. Sean, what's your kind of?
Yeah. I think the move has a lot of potential. And to Greg's point, I think it could be a really, really good move for DAT. It could be awesome. And I worry that it could also go the other direction, because I think the industry as an industry, we need DAT and Truck Stop and some of these big brands to do some really cool stuff to continue to try and innovate and really help brokers with what, with the day-to-day struggle. So I'm hoping it goes well. I think it's a better home for the platform than Flexport, just because Flexport wasn't necessarily, I don't know. I mean, Flexport's a really large, obviously brand, large company. They do really well, but it seems like it fits well with the DAT suite of products and what they're trying to do, just being more of a tech provider. They're not, they're not actually moving freight like Flexport is. So to sell it and have a go-to-market strategy as some kind of digital matching platform, I don't think it's a bad move for DAT. I'm hoping it goes well. It's also interesting that the name. So you have this company that didn't go well, right? Convoy, and then it gets sold to Flexport. They keep the name, and then it gets sold to DAT, and they keep the name for now anyway. But it's almost like that part just the kind of for the PR because it's got some buzz around it right now, right?
Yeah.
Will DAT just kind of absorb it under their brand, and that's probably the way to go because at some point. Like it was a failed idea overall. Like it sounds like the tech is really savvy, really cool, but the overall idea of being super digital and not more personable on like the soft touch that the brokers provide, that hasn't worked out, as an industry. But they have those digital brokerages. They have moved us forward as an industry, but their model didn't work or hasn't worked. I don't think.
Good point. Good point. Yeah. No, I think it sharpens up brokers maybe to push them forward into some things that you're traditionally not going to get into, especially if you're a very relationship heavy brokerage, right? Like you rely on customers that have been beyond the average of 3 years. You rely on carriers that are beyond the average of probably less than a year, right? And you're doing those repetitive moves, and then in any way you can automate that, I think is a smart move for a brokerage, as long as you're not losing your relationship touch, as long as you're not taking the people completely out. I think that's where, to Sean's point, I think that's where that digital brokerage has failed, is that you eventually become a number and nobody wants that.
Yeah. I was talking to somebody actually this morning. Shout out to my guy, Steve. Gave him a ring this morning, and he's sort of like he runs the business, like the sales side and the coverage side. So it's sort of like the cradle to grave model, but there are a lot of agencies popping up, and I'm curious, how does this, when I was speaking with him, and I've talked to a lot of people that fit this type, but when they get loads, they're bidding on spot business, and they don't have the contractual repeat business relationship type driven stuff. How does this because you talked about a brokerage, as a brand, as an entity, as a company, but for these agencies, do you think this would help them maybe adopt some of that, or does it become, to me, it sounds kind of like it's not really going to make a move, make a difference for those guys. And I don't know truthfully how big of the market is that cradle to grave. If we were saying 40% of the market is this side, but that said, does it make it riskier for having more freight out there now? Because if it's, previously Convoy had its freight on their platform, now I'm going to assume it's all just going to be bubbled up. Is that going to increase more risk for exposure, or is it riskier? I don't know. Greg, Sean.
Go ahead, Sean.
Yeah. So I don't know. In terms of risk, I don't know. I think the target audience, at least the way I had heard about how Flexport was handling the go-to-market strategy with Convoy, it felt like it really probably would work well for folks that do a lot of LTL, and they're not doing a ton of truckload, so they don't have that vast network, but they don't have to say no to revenue opportunities. They can kind of lean on this tech partner that's going to, and because we see that, luckily I get to work on both sides just because we do both. So we see that go the other way. We see a lot of full truckload brokers that will plug in with LTL brokers, right? There you go. So they don't want to say no to those revenue opportunities, but they're not necessarily trying to turn it into their main revenue source. They just don't want to open the door for another broker by saying we don't do that, right? And then all of a sudden you got to go to another broker for LTL. But I think as a strategy, you just cannot, you have to be personable. I mean, I guess, and I might be a little biased because most of the companies we work with are more relationship focused brokers. They're not necessarily looking for just something that's digital and that's what's going to get the job done. So I guess I'm a little biased on that. I think you need you need multiple strategies for how you're going to build out your network. Like, we're very lucky as an industry that these load boards exist, because if you don't have capacity on a lane, or you just don't have a network on a set of lanes that you got this new customer on, you can post. But if you're posting and then you never have a plan for how you're going to aggregate all of that carrier data and all those quotes you got, right, where you never end up building a relationship, it's a failing strategy, I think.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think too, like, back to like specifically to the agents, like, if they become reliant on that, like we said, if you're 100% reliant on a load board, and downtime becomes a real worry of yours, like, there isn't a lot of faith I'd be putting into, like, adding in a giant piece of tech into an already giant piece of tech and nothing going wrong.
Yeah.
Right. Like, I think that's just, it's just reality. And I think that could cost, specifically agents that are living and dying on going to find trucks and posting and everything like that. That could cost them day, week, customer. Yeah. So, I think even if they change like a policy and it's completely against how you operate your business, like, those are all things that you've got to take into consideration. But again, it could become something where, some guy sets and forgets it, and he's got his hands behind his head and his feet on the desk, right? So, it could go either way.
Yeah. So I want to shift a little to the first topic here about margins. And, like, I've seen for the last 2-3 years, people are like, it's going to get better. It's going to get better. And every panel I'm on, every conversation I'm in, it's like, it's not going to get better, or it is. It's always like, I have no idea. Let's just
second half
see where the wind's going today. See where the fraud is not going. But, like, margins are a thing that, it's a service-driven business in brokerage. You don't have, like, you're not selling a commodity. So the margins are driven by that service level and what you're doing. I guess, like, Greg, what are you seeing? Where's that squeeze coming from? Is it, like, rates, competition, shippers? Is it the other thing, man? And Sean and I can tell, like, there's oversaturation of tech right now. Yeah. Like, is it techs, like, just the different tech stacks? Like, we're competing not just for, like, problem solution, but it's also budget now. Like, because everything, these tech companies can't just, like, we can't go down in price. Like, I mean, if we're adding more value, it's got to, it has to match, like, mirror what we're providing. So, like, how are you seeing, like, the margins being compressed? Like, what are you seeing?
That's an interesting point, right, that you bring up, as, like, on the tech side of things, right? Because I don't want to put my margins down, but to stay competitive, I have to, right? So, what am I seeing? I mean, spot rates are still under contract, right? So that's a big piece of what we're seeing as far as how we bid on, when we're talking about spot freight, or we're talking about living on a load board. Like, you're taking a less margin for sure to get in the door, right? And those are the type of things that you've got to look at, where you're used to this lane paying you X amount. You got 10 trucks that can do that, but this customer says they pay $300 less, and now your margin is either, pennies on the dollar or not a margin, right? But to get in the door and to build that up. So, I think it's a combination of that. I think shippers are also rebidding their freight and looking to make sure that, their trusted partner is keeping it honest and being out there. And, every once in a while you get the big box broker that can come in and absorb those rates and absorb a negative margin for a span of time that doesn't affect the day, right? Kind of like if you're at a restaurant, like a comp, right? Like, they're willing to comp you for a while to get that lane in the door, to have that repeat customer, until they can turn it over, or the market flips, or whatever their strategy might be. But that's I think what we're seeing a lot. But I think what we're trying to do, specifically, is, if the shippers are going to be rebidding, and they're going to be keeping it out there and everything like that, how are we ahead of that at Concept? How are we able to manage a lane, manage the customer, and then break it down into lane and truck and trailer and all that, to make sure that we're keeping it honest as well. Because the plus side of tech is set and forget. The downside of tech is set and forget.
Yeah.
Right? You're gonna run into these great automation pieces, but if no one's really managing those automation pieces and going back and reviewing what's happening and what the trucks are doing and what the market is, that could become a real problem for any broker. If a customer has somebody walk, I mean, how many times, right? Like you see a customer that you got a ton of faith in, you've been working with them forever. Next thing you know, somebody new's in the office. Hey, I used to work in freight a little while. Let me take a crack and call my guys, right? And all of a sudden the rates are, whoa, you've been charging us way too much. I'm like, have you had a problem in 5 years? No, but right. So like, back to being service driven and being a partner to your customer and to your carrier, like making sure that you've got some sort of scale. And I've always been a big believer in this. It's like, this is what the market's saying. This is what you told me you needed. Let's decide on, just because the market says it's 800 and we pay you 600 doesn't mean we're wrong. Mm-hmm. Right. But let's say that's our litmus test. And if it goes to 9, then we'll talk about the rate, as it goes down. But that's a two-sided conversation as well. Like, if it's at 9 and it's going to go down to 7, what are we doing, right? I can't absorb that more and more and more. But I mean, big box brokers are seeing market compression as well, right? It's there. It's a real thing. I just think that the market's down. I think shippers are not shipping what we're used to. And again, you've got an oversaturation tech, carriers, brokers. Like we patted ourselves pretty good when 22 was happening, and that ain't the case no more.
Yeah. Sean, I don't know if you have anything to add on that.
Well, I was just going to say I was one of the people that was originally wrong about when the market would turn, because early last year in 20, I was predicting Q2 2025 was really where we would see things turn. And there's certain things that have, but not like I don't think any of us expected some of, it's just some of where the market went, how tariffs would affect, how AI would bubble up and start affecting things and whatnot. So, but to Greg's point, I think, these tech stacks, and I think, Chris, you and I share a similar philosophy on this, but anything that we're trying to automate for a broker is specifically to make it so that the broker can be more human, right? With the human touch with their shipper. Because to Greg's point, like, you have that new guy come in that's like, oh, we can get this cheaper. And if they come to Greg, like, if I'm Greg, I'm gonna say something like, well, we can't do what we do for less, right? So if you like what we do, right, he's providing a service, right? So it's like you can maybe get a lower rate somewhere, right? And I say the same thing to customers that come to Tai and want us to lower the price. It's like, look, there's other products out there that are even in some cases free, but we can't do what we do for any less, right? Like we're already trying to sell at the fairest possible price. And I think, a lot of good companies, like if you have a good relationship with a shipper, like Concept has a lot of good relationships with shippers. So they're going to be able to have that personal conversation with them. And if you're not having those, and you have to have them on the trucking side too, because I think what happens is if you have these dedicated customers and these dedicated trucking companies that work with you, you'll have margin compression, but it's a little more stable and manageable. But when you're competing in the spot quote market, it's always going to fluctuate. And so if most of what you're doing is spot quote, and you don't have those dedicated relationships, then you're just going to have pressure all the time. Like a guy like Greg needs to be, or his team needs to be able to go to a trucking company, and when they go, hey man, I could get a better price on another load somewhere. It's like I can make an extra like $400. If Greg's team is able to say, well, dude, I could come up another 2, would that work? They have a little bit of pull to be able to, because that guy knows he's going to get paid. He knows he's going to get paid on time. He knows he's going to get more loads from Concept. He knows that Concept is going to think about what lanes does he even like running? Like, how do we get that guy home to sleep in his own bed, like after this
100%.
trip, 100%. Right? So, versus like, I can make $500 over here this one time. And I think a lot of truckers think like that. I think, there's always short-sighted folks out in the world in every industry, but I think a lot of folks think like that. Like, these guys take care of me. If they're willing to come up a little bit to meet me in the middle, like, I'm in. I'd rather take their load than somebody else's.
Yeah,
that's a great.
Go ahead, Greg.
Oh, I was going to say, I mean, to me, it's a mindset shift, right? It's not who can cover it the cheapest. It's not anything like that. It's, which carrier keeps margin and can also cover 10 loads.
Yeah.
Like, that's who I want to deal with, right? Like, and if that's not the usual margin on that lane, and I can put a carrier I can trust on that, we've always had that philosophy of making sure that the carrier is taken care of. And Sean, I mean, I have a questionnaire I've given out to my carrier reps, like, what are your commitments to your drivers? When do they need to be home? And how often is that? Like, those are the things I really care about, because when I was covering freight, way back when we were literally faxing, like,
you're not even that old.
I printed up for every load. Like, it was insane. But those are the things that when I talk to the drivers and I form those relationships, those are the things that I recognize that's what matters. It's like, man, yeah, Tom will do your load, but he's got to be back in Buffalo by whatever. And it's like, I'm going to make that happen for him, right? I mean, I've given them phone numbers to other brokers that had loads posted so they could get home, right? And told them what they should say, right? Like, those are the things, back to being in a relationship and everything like that. But that's the mindset shift is get away from the who can cover it the cheapest and who can cover it the most and still make a margin.
Yeah. That's a good. So I'm gonna add this guest to the stage. I don't know if you guys. It looks like we're on the side and then the screen is all full view. Is that what you guys are seeing?
Yeah.
This is exactly like the thing. So today, at least, I don't think a robot or AI can have that like gut check, that emotion. Trust is so hard to like. I don't know if you can put a number to it. I'm sure in a couple of years we can, like, on a Likert scale, 1 to 10 is how I feel about this carrier or something. But like, this is why I think this partnership between us, Cargo Chief and Tai, made this possible for you guys. That for anyone watching, this is one of the case studies that we did with Greg and his team there at Concept, and we'll just walk through a couple pieces. But it's the title there, Reps Not Robots, and I think, like, I don't know, how does that make you feel? What's your gut reaction and how that fits your business, where you guys are today, Greg, and where you were, and just kind of where the market is?
Well, to me, it's great, right? Because that's who we are. We're a people-driven business. Like, we've built this business on good people, right? And what can you do for your people that helps them succeed is training and tools, and how to use those tools to, amplify their lives and what we do here at Concept, and be of service to your customers and your carriers. So, yes, there is, some amazing things out there, right? You see a lot of automation, you see a lot of AI, you see a lot of all these things. But at the end of the day, for us at least, it's not who Concept is. It's how do I supercharge my great people, right? Like, these are people that we've hired because we want them around us, right? Like, we work with our work people, we see them more than our families. And we, sad and true that is. But like, if you're not surrounded by good people, that people you want to see succeed and have you succeed as well, then, that's where I think that headline takes me, is like, it's about the people, not about replacing them for automation's sake.
Yeah. Sean, what about from your side? Like, one thing that we've heard a theme in the last like 3 months is probably this back half, like losing control without losing control, right? Like, we talked about change earlier, but like that is first it was like change management, but what does that actually fucking mean? And like, whenever we come into a shop, it's like, one thing that I know brokers love and hate to lose is control. Like, of, which carriers am I using? Like, we even had people create triggers to where they were controlling what loads were getting sent out through automation. And like that, you can't put a button in front of something that's called automation and it's actually going to work. Like, it has to be, you have to feel good about it. And the thing that like people just hate to lose is control. Do you see, like, I don't know. It's probably different from a TMS, but like, how do you guys see that? And Greg, if you want to comment on that too.
Now we definitely talk about it in that form, like because we have some AI components of the TMS, but they're built in a way where we're automating a component that then goes to a human, and then they can kind of make sure it's good, and then they let the automation keep going, right? So it's like essentially automation with human intervention, right? And I think that's honestly the way everybody should think about this, because I think we're in a little bit of a bubble with the AI stuff. Although at the same time, there's some really cool, like, it's not going to go away. It's just that all these companies that are popping up, like some of them will work out because they'll do some cool, innovative stuff. They'll figure it out, and some will just, probably, crash out because it's just like everybody's on the AI train. But anybody who's thinking about it, I think to prep yourself for kind of what's coming with the industry is make sure that your data is in good order. So you have an easy way to collect data, because AI operates on good data, right? So if you have good data, you're collecting data. That's really important. And then the second part is, don't ever think of it like you're eliminating people. Like you might, what might happen is your good people, your best people will be able to do a lot more. And then you might not need to go hire more people, right? So you can do a lot more with the people you have today. And I think that's because there's all these companies popping up where there's like AI agents and AI, and some of them are really, really cool, but you need somebody who understands how to be an agent on the back end of that. Like it can't just be, and there really needs to be a human being who picks up the phone. Like not every time, right? Like you can get away with like, some automated messages going out for some of your customers. Like we have a component where if somebody emails you and wants just an update on their shipment, we can just automatically respond, and it looks like it came from you, from the broker, and it says like, oh, here's the the latest update on your shipment, and we're pulling it from the tracking information. And some people love that for like a quick thing. But I can tell you right now, when shit goes down, they want to be able to call somebody and have somebody go, hey, I know, I got it. I'm on top of it. Don't worry. I'll call you back in whatever, an hour, right? And I'll give you an update. And then you actually follow through with that. So you have to lean on the automation, but to help you with some of the tedious stuff, to free you up for the stuff that really matters and the human being is still always going to have to be the one who does the nuanced stuff, right? Like automation can really only help you with your standard stuff today anyway. I don't know if that'll change in the future.
Yeah. I think too, like, speaking on that specific tracking automation, like that's great to have that automatic go out, but also automating the piece that gives you the warning to go be proactive to your customer. That's where the real meat of it is. I always felt is that if you can set that up and you can be forewarned, right? That you need to jump on something. That's where automation really has its teeth. And I agree with Sean a lot on the machine, without losing control. I've always, when I kind of got into leadership, I took a vision of like, this is the machine, and you got to look at it from above, and you also got to look at it where you fit in. Like you're part of the machine, even though you might be on a level where you're looking down and making sure everything's running. You also play a piece. You're also a moving part in that machine. So those are the kind of the view I've taken through there, and I think it's been advantageous. But like that's where I think you don't lose control in that, is that if you can see yourself in the machine and you can see yourself above it, that's where you kind of see where you're going.
Yeah, I think I hopped too far down here, but that's a good. So like this is sort of the machine, right? Like the machine of the automation layer, like. So some things that happened whenever, we turned this integration on, there were sort of two phases, right? Like first we were integrated with Tai, and that was like the traditional freight matching way back then, right? Like that was procurement, like traditional freight matching, essentially. That was the first wave. And then over the year or so, like we transitioned a little bit to more like targeted and segmented. But through that transition, we saw more like this sort of conversion rates start to happen. Like your replies went up, the offers went up, the bookings went up, but the main thing was that they were on target. I think is sort of like where people get mixed in, or lost rather, in the noise of like a load board. Like you can post in LA to Phoenix and get 20 calls. You're only booking one. Like what happened with the other 19? Did you just like where did all of that stuff go? I don't know. I guess, Greg, when you guys rolled this out, like between, Tai and Cargo Chief, and how the two communicate with each other, like what was like a big component of like just the automation, the replies, offers, bookings, those things coming through?
Well, I mean, one, and I'll just, this is a blanket statement, and I think we've all heard it, said it, whatever. But if you go to the load board, you're dead, right? So, so how do I get my freight to the people I know want it? That I also can bring that to them, but make sure that I'm still getting new bids or new carriers involved, and what that looks like, and reviewing that. So that's really like when we started to see Cargo Chief come into Tai, I think that was that was our first thought process of it. It's like, okay, look at all these carriers that we have in network, or these are not. We can identify that right now and start to put bids, make calls, do what we need to do. And then as that kind of went, when we took the philosophy of like, okay, we've got all this repeat freight, we've got all this business, how do we take what Tai has in this house? And I've always been a really big fan of the truckload quoting screen, right? So bringing people into one place and having not 3,000 sticky notes all over computers, and Bob with the all the carriers, and the new guy sitting in the corner not knowing what to do or who to call. You were able to bring that all into one spot, and that's what you see. Are they onboarded? Where is this information coming from? What can we identify as something like this? Can we expand it? And yes, right? Like, say it's defaulted to like a 50-50 mile of OD pair. Now you're saying, well, who did this in 200 miles, right? And that's one thing that I think we've seen in both sides, is expanding that search. And then even Chris, what Cargo Chief and C4 has done is like, if we see a rate that a guy bid on and he was $100 higher, right, we can go back to that and identify and be like, you weren't that far off, and we really like you as a carrier. What was driving that price that day? Oh yeah, we were that, if I remember, we were 300 miles off, so we just added that to the line haul. And what, that's a great carrier that I really want to use on that lane, and I said no. So what typically happens in that is that you don't think about them again, right? Like a truckload broker's mind is go, go, go. Yeah. So being able to go back and review all this data and then store it in one place, and then have a place you can extract it and really look at what's happening here, that's priceless. And that's where I think you see the replies come up. You see the bookings become faster. You're seeing all these different things happen at the same time, while you're still paying attention to getting the freight covered as quickly and as safe as possible.
Yeah, we definitely, even beyond just what you're seeing here for Concepts case study, like we have quite a few overlapping customers, and when they train their team around using these products the right way, we see a doubling the bookings per person per day. That's it's pretty regular, because they're like Greg said, you can see it in one place, but you got Cargo Chief doing some of the legwork with collecting the quotes and bringing in your network and making sure you're going to the right folks, but you're seeing it in Tai without breaking up your workflow, and you're able to compare it to other data sources to make sure the price is right. You're in the right area. But what Greg said is exactly what I think that where I see some brokers make the biggest mistake is if you can't identify a set of carriers that you might want to work with, even if you haven't worked with them before, but they've quoted you a few times on a lane. So now you've already established they like obviously work in that lane. They want more freight in that lane. Their pricing is slightly off. Why not give them a phone call, right? And I think that's what sets some brokers apart from the ones that have really, really struggled through this, the last few years here, is they don't have that. They don't have any they're just constantly posting. And like I said earlier, I'm glad that as an industry for a less experienced broker, we have load boards, because you can post and you can try to vet those carriers out. But if you are not like using a tool like this where you can collect it, you can look back at the data, and you can see who is being fair regularly, right? And then you can scorecard those carriers too, to make sure that like You want, because the worst thing you can do to one of your carrier reps is like overload them and give them no tools. And then they're just posting. And then you come to them and you're like, hey, why'd you post that? We have a carrier for that. And they're just like, dude, I got it covered. You know what I mean? Like I didn't like, right. But if you make it easy for them, right? If you make it easy for them to go back to the trusted carrier again and again, right? Then it becomes like, this is the way, right? Like in a lot of brokerages, when you don't have the right tools, posting is the way. It is like, you can tell them all day, like, hey, go over to Jim, pull up his spreadsheet and look at all his carriers for that lane, and then run back over to your computer and then like, email them or whatever, right? Like if it's not easy, it's just not going to happen the way you want it to. And you can't really blame the rep for, if you haven't made it easy on them.
Yeah. It's somebody was telling me about like on the job training and stuff. And so there was one guy I knew. He said that they would put them in the track and trace before they booked loads, so they could tell like the broken processes and what happens, because everything is so manual. But also like if you put in 1600 instead of 0400, there's a big problem. And so when you're selling that freight, like you got to have stuff all in one place and precise. It can't just be on a sticky note. It can't just be like a verbal, like, hey, it delivers at 4. Like people are going to make mistakes. Like it's okay. It's okay to make mistakes. I mean, no one's going to be 100% accurate every day, but like, even when we're talking about like offers here in this case, like there are loads that Greg, you guys had that went through automation. And like when we set up waterfalls, and Greg, you can talk a little bit more about the waterfall configuration, but like when we set those up, the idea is for it to go to your primary carriers first. Like even, we'll talk to your carrier and say like, hey, we're setting you guys up as a primary carrier on this lane. Like you're going to start getting the loads first. And carriers are like, fuck yeah. Like you're saying I don't have to go to a board anymore. They're just going to come straight to me. Exactly. But at the same time, like if you want that freight, like you gotta be booking it too, because there were times where like it would trickle through the cadence. This guy got 30 minutes, this guy got an hour, so on and so forth. If they're not booking it and it goes out to a bigger network that's still vetted, there could be options that are, $100, $50 less than what you're already paying. That could be just as viable and actionable as your top carrier. And like there's a lot of like, part of this, the theme here is like, what can you do about margin compression? Like a lot of times it's sitting in your board, and you're just going to a load board, and you're not like thinking about it because nobody's capturing those rates. Nobody's having those conversations to where, like Greg, your point, you can go back to these carriers and say like, we run this lane at $3,000 all the time, but like we got other options at 27. We want to still go with you. Yeah, but you got to like be booking faster. You got to help us help you, sort of thing. Greg, what's your kind of take on that whole thing, and how is it?
I mean, kind of hit the nail on the head right there with what we want that to look like, right? Like we want to be able to I've always just been a big believer in like managing the lane, right? Like, and what does that look like? It's, to me, that's stacking carriers that, whether it be the exact right price, a little bit heavier, a little bit lower, so on down the line, where you make no margin on it, but you still have a carrier, right? And you're able to go through that in a way where you feel like you're still managing it. So say you have your number one carrier that you're putting on there, and we've talked to them like, this is what I need out of this lane if you're going to get paid this, because the next guy exits 27 and you're at 29, right? But that being said, you track well. We have great conversations. I really like your team, everything like that. Like my customer's happy. If you're going to be happy and you're going to commit to 80-90% of taking these within the frame, Chris, that you've obviously, he's been such a great help in bringing some of these carriers too. But in that frame of like, when this comes across, you've got an hour.
Yeah.
Right. But I'm giving you above market price, or I'm giving you the market price, and I'm not going to nickel and dime you. I want you to have this freight. I want you to look at me like, hey, this is coming across. My customer is giving this to me. not the broker, right? And I think that goes back to what you said earlier, Chris, is like, oh, you mean it's going to come to me and nobody else? Right? Like that is taking the broker mindset out of it, is that you're trying to give this carrier, you're trying to be a customer to them rather than always, pigeonhole them into giving you taking it for $5 less, $5 less, $5 less.
Yeah.
Right? We don't need to negotiate. I trust the hell out of you. I want you on this lane and I want you to do good. Here's what I need back. We're always tracking. You need to take it within, an hour, and I need you to take 80% of them. And if you're not going to take them, that's a phone call.
Yeah.
Right. It's not deny it, but call me and tell me why, so I can understand it. And it does, you know what I mean? Like, we want to be as reasonable as we possibly can, not a TMS, that, oh, you're not 98% compliant. It's like you said, Chris, like, people make mistakes and we're human, right? And at the end of the day, so's AI, because we built it.
Right. It can be a bit fallible. Yeah. When I hear stuff like that too, I think about, if I'm a broker that's trying to grow, I want my sales reps to go in, and when they hear something from a shipper that's like, well, yeah, we've got a good price on these lanes, but like sometimes the broker can't, like the reason we're talking to you is sometimes the broker can't get it covered, right? Or whatever the case may be. And then when I go, which lanes, right? And I hear the lanes that we crush it on, we have this vast network. I'm just in, like, as a sales rep, you're internally going like, yes, like we're gonna crush this, right? So I mean, you like, it gives the entire business confidence when you look at it that way. When you actually have folks that like, hey, there may be times where the price is not what you want it to be, but I promise you, like, we're gonna get it covered. And it's not like we're ever going to gouge you. Like, we're going to be a really good partner to you here, because we have good partners that will move the freight.
Yeah. That's a really good point. And like, of both of what you guys said, Greg, you said like, it sounds sort of like the tech here is it's the tech and the broker in one piece, but like you're going from like customer straight to carrier. And like, that's something kind of eye-opening for me. I haven't thought about, like, when we pitch Cargo Chief or C4, it's a product, but like, if you're saying like, this is going to enable like your team, like to not even have to think about it as a TMS, a product or software, it's just making them like, this is the outcome that they're going to have now. Like, and to Sean's point, like, man, I wish I knew when I was running freight, like, I wish I knew that 80-90% of our company's loads were handled. And like, if I was like, as a sales rep or whatever, if I was like, man, I want to like have my freight like that too. Like, how can I take it from this spot business or just like this chaotic world to where I don't have to deal with fall offs? I don't have to deal with those things anymore. Like, how can I move it into that like home? And like that's something that I haven't really thought about that, but it's like, it's just like, I mean, the tech is an extension of your team. Like we've talked about that stuff before, but like, just for anyone listening, like the tech is, talk to Greg. Talk to Greg. I think that's like something interesting. If I was to open a brokerage tomorrow, it would not have a load board. It would just have everything that I would need to have to home or to house freight. And like, it's crazy because like, back then there were no like, and I had like Navisphere. I was at XPO. Like, we had really great home built TMSs, and I had no way to like see where my quotes were. I had no way to see like, I run this lane all the time, but is there, what am I using as leverage for my carrier to want to do better, for my customer to know that like, hey, we are doing really good. And like, this is what our carriers are saying, and just taking it different. I think it all comes down to time, really. Like, talking about the booking machine, those replies, offers, bookings, that gives your team all that time back. And, Sean, doubling bookings per person, that means also twice as fast. Like, it's not going to take as much time. And like, I feel like that's kind of where everything moves. And to kind of comment on this last piece here, procurement as a profit lever, I think like a lot of companies will, when they're driving in, new revenue, they're trying to acquire new freight, like they'll look at a database and do RFPs and stuff and try to go win that business when they actually get it, they have no carriers.
None.
So now they're just
none.
it's like I talked to somebody
2 months ago, pal. I'm at this now, and I don't even go there anymore.
Right. Yeah. And there is like, it's crazy because when you talked to them 2 months ago, it sounded really good, but you did nothing to keep them in the loop. You did nothing to like, maybe it was like, hey, we're still winning it. Or it's like, I've had it so many times where the carrier was asking me like, hey, what about those loads? Like, oh yeah, we're working on it, but it was very reactive. It was like, it wasn't me going out to my carrier to say like, hey, like, we're still working on this, but we have this other freight that matches for you. Like, that's a great match. And I think that's a
great point. And Sean, I really like that you brought that up, because that's I think something that Tai and C4 together help enable us to do really well, right? When we're able to capture the data and we're able to have 10 carriers dialed out per lane, right? Like, now you're talking about a salesperson going into a shipper, and it's like, oh, well, yeah, dude, we do that lane all the time. Yeah, they're going to be giddy, but to get them really giddy is that, maybe we talked about it before. Maybe your second, third, fourth carriers that don't see a ton of that lane, but they're there, and you're trying to feed them a little bit. Now you're getting them a number one spot in the freight, right? Mm-hmm. Now you're moving them and you're managing the lane to bring that carrier that has the capacity and is always there and is willing to do what you need them to do, and you're moving them up, right? Or maybe you're moving one back, one up, and then over, right? Like, but that's what I'm talking about when I'm saying like manage those lanes. It's like, look at it as a whole, right? Look at it, look above it in the machine, and then where do you fit in the machine?
Yeah.
Just go back on that idea.
I love that mindset. I mean, I think that's what makes Concept so successful. Is like we were just talking about a customer, and he immediately was like, "Oh, good, I can take care of another trucking company that we like working with." And I think that's really the mindset, because if you don't have that, if you don't have a network of carriers, you don't really have a product. Like, yeah, you're trying to provide a service, right? But you don't really you're just taking on a bunch of risk every day, and it's always more stressful than it needs to be, and you just never have the ability to try and recover margin. You're at the mercy of whatever is going to be sent to you from carriers you've never worked with.
Yep.
At the mercy of the month starting over on the first day. Gosh, I hated that. No pre-booking, no just it's the end of the month right now, but it's going to start all over in a couple days. So that's terrible. It's taking me back to those freight mares. But I think what we've sort of evolved to is more to from that traditional freight matching, but using procurement to help that decision making. Part of that is going into you think about purchase intent, and the ads are coming to you. You're not going to look for an ad. And in the same side of the coin, why doesn't that work in freight? Capacity is it does, right? It should be the same thing. Greg and his team have moved from, over the years, it's been going on 3 years, I think, that you guys have been a customer, but it started with traditional procurement sourcing. Then it went to all right, how can we send these loads out to targeted carriers? And team at Concept has a great load to carry ratio, but it doesn't all start there, right? No. Some freight, there is we just got this, let's try to tighten this up. But the reason they can is because they've moved into this capacity intent, to where it's the carriers that they're identifying, and it can be quotes, it can be regular freight, it can be spot freight. It does not matter what it is. It's all a lane. It's all something that a carrier is interested in. And you think of it just dropping it in a funnel, just like you would for sales and leads and marketing and things like that. But because you're able to tighten up that load to carry ratio, it's because you've been able to stay in front of your carriers with freight that matches, that are, and at the same time, those carriers they still meet your compliance criteria. You guys use highway, I think, right?
Correct.
And that's a big thing too, that, if those carriers are just the guy you talked to 2 months ago, never even passes your compliance criteria, you're not really going to be able to work with him. And so it's just staying in front of, it's not even a quote. It's just it's the random guy who calls in, says I can do it for $200 less than what you're wanting to run it for, but you can't work with him. He he has a DOT and a heartbeat, and that's about it. And it's like that. This is sort of where like things have shifted. I guess to Sean, I'm curious on your perspective, like how have you seen like, and I know Tai has specific workflows and decision-making tools for people that it can automate some things, but how is this like, how have you seen freight matching change? I guess leave it there.
I think, and this kind of goes back to the way we started this conversation with the digital brokers, when they were trying to just like, you know, almost take the humans out and say like, well, you can just digitally match freight, you know, customers requests coming in, just match it up. And I think that's some of the cool stuff that has come out of that mindset is you have a product like Cargo Chief that can help you match up the freight, right? But then when you combine that inside of Tai, it makes it so that if you have pretty standard spot quotes coming in, where there's nothing really nuanced about them, maybe it's a bunch of just dry van freight, easy stuff to run. You can actually we can scrape those emails, bring them in. You could even rate it, send it back automatically, let them book it. And then as soon as they book it and it's a committed shipment, it can go right over into Cargo Chief. It could match up with the right trucking company, and it could the whole thing could be automated. Mm-hmm. But what I think is like what's making this type of system work for brokers is you have a human at each stage, right? So we're just trying to take away the data entry and like where to find the rate, right? So if we just set it up and somebody goes, oh yeah, that looks good, and they can just hit send, okay, we got that component. A human was in the middle of it, so there was still a personal touch, but we made it faster, right? And then when it goes over to Cargo Chief and you start compiling the network, or you get it to the right carrier, you get to double check, like, okay, so we have it set up for it to hopefully go to, you know, this carrier, and then if he doesn't get it in an hour, to Greg's point, then this guy, right? But just the ability to match the freight easily, it just makes everything faster. And then your team is really just doing, and you still need people that know what they're doing. You still need people that are good at building relationships, but ideally they're just taking a peek, and it's just a faster process. They're looking at it, they're a couple clicks, and they're doing what they, 5 years would have taken them an hour, or plus to get done. And instead it's like, hey, that was less than 10 minutes.
Yeah. It's like, go ahead, Greg.
I was going to say, I mean, that's really well said, because at the end of the day, right, like we want to make sure that we've got everything you want to automate the repetitive tasks as much as possible. Now, that being said, like what are we doing with our time? You're creating time and space for creativity on how to do your job better. Like, I think one of the major KPIs for a broker should not be how many loads you do. How many loads can you get repeatedly done? Right? How many times can you win that lane? Like, yes, there is room for as many loads you can get done, right? Like, obviously, but there's also the real win there is like, I've gotten that load 4 or 5 times now. Okay, well then now it's time to have a different conversation with this customer and say, hey, we're doing a great job for you. Let's just be the primary on this. We'll take care of it for you. Now you're building up repetitive lanes, right? Now you're building it into the system where you're having your carriers get doled out. You're building up a carrier base. You're creating more space there. And then when the fire drills that are inevitably going to happen, your freight that you want to take care of and that you've got automated and you've got trusted partners on both the carrier and customer side is taken care of. You're able to go into those situations, and you're able to handle those fire drills, those spot freight opportunities that come in, and you're able to move in there and still have the things that need to be taken care of.
Yeah, I think I saw some article a while back when drones were flying all around us and stuff, but there's something about like drone pilots, they can pilot like hundreds at a time, where like, if it's a real pilot, there's only one. Like you got to fly one, and it's kind of similar, right? Like you got one guy who can just come in, and the velocity of freight is much higher because you can just enter your load and everything works. Like Sean's point, like that's crazy, man. Like that stuff did not exist. Like when I was booking loads, it was like now you can, automate the rate to your shipper.
Like carrier sheet. These are the carriers I call on a daily basis, whether I had freight or not.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Should frame that.
Every day. Every day.
Yeah.
So it's just like cutting down on the workload and stuff. And like the search is like, I think about this too. Kirk and I talk about this Kirk, our CEO, and we talk about like the search going away. Like everything has shifted to AI now, like ChatGPT and just like Google AI. Like even if you type in like store near me, it'll say like store and then recommendations. Like you don't have to search for that stuff anymore, right? Like it's, and like thinking of capacity, like the search and stuff. So I guess like Greg, if I was to ask you today, like if you had to go back to that manual searching and like posting tomorrow, what would you say would break first? Would it be like speed, margins, carrier relationships, service, revenue? I don't know. What would you see kind of just start collapsing?
I think it's a imploding building. I don't think there's like one vertical that's going to go down first, because you are losing speed. You are going to lose revenue because you're losing speed. You are going to lose margin because you're not getting them too quick enough. You're, the people that you rely on. We talk about, the carriers that we're talking to, like if they're not on the other side of this, if they're not seeing the loads you promised them, what are they going to go do? They're going to go fill their trucks. Like that's the name of the game. Right. So you're gonna take a back step for sure, right? In all those things. That's why it's super important that it's a combination of the two. And I've said this before, but like as far as the AI goes, like it's not a tool, it's a teammate. And that's kind of the way you gotta really think about it. It's like, how is this thing gonna how do we work together, right? How do we make something better together? Because it's a great tool. I mean, I fucking talk to mine all the time. It's my therapist, my best friend now. Helps me coach Little League, I'm all over the place. So, that being the case, like I also work through some ideas. Like, what am I missing, right? Like when I input an idea, like in the hey, I need this out of my TMS and this, and what is we talk about it. We go through it. So it's like, I think that the point I'm trying to make is like there is no going back, right? So how do we find what your brokerage is not going to be Concepts brokerage. So you know what I mean? But like, what tools work for you, and what tools can you take these same ideas that are time tested and are moving through the progression of technology and put those in for yourselves and really start to make some hay and make some progress and supercharge people and see human development, see people become the potential that you saw in them when you hired them,
not just order takers.
Yeah.
Right. All right, Sean, any last words from your side?
Yeah, I would just say we say this internally a lot. AI and automation is not going to take your job, but the human being who knows how to use it will. So, that's our internal philosophy with all this automation and AI, and that's how we try to think about it all. So, for the brokers out there who, to Greg's point, you maybe don't fit his model, but I can tell you right now, if you're with any outdated technology or you're not using the technology, like it's going to get really tough, and so, we have some worthy competitors that I respect, and maybe like Concept is a good fit for us, and another broker might be a good fit for them. But there's also a lot of systems out there that are not really keeping up with the times, and so be careful that you're not on one of those. And integration capability to take advantage of tools like Cargo Chief and Highway you guys mentioned earlier, like being able to easily sync up with this stuff and help you aggregate data and get you ready for the kind of the digital AI future is really important. And I would tell anybody who is on the fence about it, like just start doing research, just start looking at the right tools, because it's going to move fast, I think, over the next few years here.
Yeah. The last thing we typically talk about, like problem solution. And I think just like to tie it off here, don't think of like the solution, think of your problem first.
Yeah. Because
a lot of times, like, we'll ask people, what's the problem you're trying to solve? And they're like, well, I want a better carrier base or something. But so what's your problem? Like, is yours just shitty right now or what? Like, and what's going on?
Pick up the phone and talk to people.
Yeah.
Might be why you don't have carriers.
Yeah, right. So, I think this, for anyone, looking at a TMS like Tai or anything and us and freight matching and capacity, then, think about your problem first and then see if we can solve it. Greg, Sean, appreciate you guys, and we'll move y'all backstage, and I'll just kind of wrap up here.